Hey, what is going on, everybody? We are once again working on the Axial SCX10 II Raw Builder's Kit. Getting started on the transmission. Pretty straightforward. Basically the same as the SCX10 transmission, but they molded it so that your motor plate and half of the gearbox is all one piece now. Seemed a lot sturdier, a lot stronger. But we'll get started, see how it goes. First, you will need a little thread lock. The kit does come with a little bottle of blue thread lock. It also comes with a little tube of grease, but I prefer to use the lithium grease. So now you have one side that's threaded. One side that is not. Place it over the gear there. And this is where you need 3 or 4 fingers, 3 or 4 hands. A little bit of thread lock there. Alright, get one started, the other two will be a little easier. Like I said, if you've never built a kit before or always wanted to, this is a good one to start with. Snug those down. Alright, then you got your 2 big old fat bearings here, one over each side. And that guy's ready. Set him there. Next up, we got the little short stubby shaft, this little guy, and this little gear, bearing on each side of it. Then he slides over the little shaft. This is the idler gear. Set him there. Then you got your output, or actually your input, I should say, from your motor. This is where your spur gear and everything attaches. Oh, let's see, he gets a little bearing. And then a little gear. And this is something I like to do. I just put a little grease in here where the pin goes. Kind of helps hold everything in place. And then you got this little bitty 1.5 by 8 millimeter pin. Slides through there. And then your gear slides up over that. I don't know if you can see that. And then another bearing. And that is your gears ready. Now you take your transmission half with the motor plate molded to it. Put a little grease on these gears. This guy slides into the up here. Make sure you push down there all the way. You don't have to cover all three of these 100% because of course the grease is going to transfer from gear to gear. He drops in that little hole there in the middle. Shop towel here. Alright, now these are your outputs for your drive shafts on this big guy. Get him a nice coat of grease. Alright. He drops in right there. Press him down all the way. Now you have the other half of your transmission. Set him over there. And pop everything together. Kind of hold it together, make sure everything rotates freely. We're good there. And we've got 4 3x12 countersunk screws. Alright, everything still rotates freely. And let me say, those screws were a bit of a bear to get in that hard plastic. More so than I've ever seen. But anyway, moving on. Alright. Now, we have our spur gear and our slipper pads. It's a peel and stick here. Just line it up with the little molded in spot. Stick them down, one on each side. Just like that. And we have a slipper plate. And you have the little spacer. And another slipper plate. And a spring. And a 4mm lock nut. And it does not say how much you should tighten it. Yes, it does. You want 8 millimeters between the plate and the top or bottom of the nut. Where's my little wrench? We'll roll her out here. Just a little bit more. Alright, 8 millimeters. That is 8 millimeters from your plate to your bottom of the flange on the lock nut. Alright, now we have our motor. This is just a Integy 35 turn crawler motor. Nothing fancy. Just one I had laying around. We have our pinion. We want to use a little bit of that blue thread lock on the pinion. Line it up with the flat. Just enough to hold it on there for now. I am going to use a little blue thread lock on my motor screws. Well, there we go. Alright. Mesh looks good. You don't want to mash it all the way in there tight. About the thickness of a piece of paper around the gears. I'll give you a little better look at that here in a second. Adjust the pinion a little bit. Snug everything down. Now, I don't know how well that's going to show up on the camera, but you can see there's a little space. You can wiggle a gear, spur gear back and forth a little bit. If you put it in there too loose, you're going to tear your gears up. If you put it too tight, you're going to tear your gears up. Then you want to line up the top of the little pinion gear with the top of the spur gear. Pretty easy. And the last thing we have is our cover. He just pops over there, and he's held on with two little screws. What size are these guys? These are 2.6 by 8 millimeter. They're the only two left out of the bag, so. And they did, Axial did packages very well. Aside from the, you have to find the plastic parts in the proper bag of plastic parts, but as far as the internal parts for the axles and the internal parts for the transmission and the screws that go with them are all in one bag, so you don't have to hunt around a bunch of different bags and little bags of screws, and everything you need for that assembly is right there. Like I said, with the exception of pulling the plastic parts out of the bag with all the plastic parts. But pretty simple, straightforward transmission. That'll do it for this go round. We'll continue probably getting the chassis together next time around. We're getting close to that point. So until next time, later.